Financial Argument. Follow us on YouTube.
John, thank you so much for joining us today.
It's my pleasure, Elijah. It's been quite a week and an exciting past 24 hours here, both in the markets and politically.
Definitely. I'd like to start with the markets. Now, with silver, just today, it shot down a little over 30 cents. What is your perspective on this week's action in the precious metal markets?
Well, it goes back to something that we've seen time and time again throughout really the last 10 to 15 years is anytime there's fundamental news that's positive for gold and silver, the bullion banks do their best to hammer the price to smash sentiment. I mean, last night, 12, 15 hours ago, pretty much out of nowhere, Trump bombed Syria, and gold and silver went vertical at the time. Gold went above 1270. Silver actually jumped above 1850. And then you had this morning just an atrocious jobs report, just a horrible number, way below expectations, under 100,000 jobs, and both gold and silver jumped again. So then, I mean, as soon as COMEX closes this afternoon, both gold and silver, which had consolidated the whole day, those gains, they're just smashed. Silver all the way back under $18. Temporarily, it's retraced a little bit. It's trading right around $18 here now as we record in the access market. And gold is knocked down a good $20 from about $12.72 to about $12.52. So, I mean, it all goes back to it's the same thing we saw when the Swiss franc was depegged from the euro several years back, something that should be fundamentally massively bullish for gold. Gold is instantly hammered $50 after spiking on the news. So it's the same thing we've seen time and time again. I mean, if you take a step back here, I mean, today we have Russia's Prime Minister Medvedev essentially saying that we're on the brink of starting World War III over this conflict. And, I mean, who in their right mind would want to be short gold going into this weekend right now?
How do you see this playing out with the U.S. and Russia in this possible conflict, that is seeming to fire up now? How do you see that impacting the precious metal markets?
Well, like I just said, for the short term, who in their right mind would want to be short gold right now this weekend going into a long weekend? And looking at just taking a step or two back with the levels we're at right now, who would want to be short gold? I mean, I sure wouldn't want to be short gold with the sudden escalation of geopolitical risks with Syria and Russia. At the same time, I mean, the Trump rally is effectively over. The dollar's rolling over. The dollar-yen pair just bounced off of 110 this morning and looks like it's headed down to 105. Probably as the next lows, and that's probably correlating with somewhere around a 1350 or 1360 gold price. So, I mean, the bankers could see what was coming, and they threw everything but the kitchen sink at the metals here today to try to stem the psychological normal reaction into gold and silver. And I mean, the crazy thing is at SD Bullion, you can see how it's effective. I mean, last night when gold and silver are soaring on the news, physical gold and silver orders are exploding off the charts. Now today, when we're suddenly given a 50-cent discount on silver from last night, the orders are dead. Nobody's buying because it's all about sentiment. And last night, everyone is probably, in my mind, correctly assessing the sentiment of, oh my goodness, this does not look good, and I need to protect my assets, to suddenly, sentiment-wise, bankers throwing paper at the market and completely turning it on its ear. So it's really nothing new. It's what we've come to expect from the bankers, and they're going to continue to try to do things like that until they're completely overrun.
Now, as we went through the week, earlier in the week, we saw first the chemical attack in Syria. Then, Trump and Western leaders were blaming then Assad on the attack. And Russia then was saying, no, it's probably just Syrian rebels that did the chemical attack. And Trump came in and said, because previously, before the attack, he had said that his administration wasn't going to take out Assad, but now he's saying that his view on Assad has changed dramatically. And, now Trump and his administration, doing this attack in Syria. With all this political conflict going on this whole week, what has demand been like at SD Bullion?
Our demand at SD Bullion has remained pretty strong. But I mean, across the industry, gold and silver sales, retail sales in the U.S. are slow right now. Just looking at the U.S. Mint's numbers, only about 250,000 Silver Eagles sold this week, which is really only about a quarter of the U.S. Mint's weekly output. So, I mean, across the industry, demand's been rather subdued here the last couple of weeks.
Is there anything else you'd like to add or anything unique that we've been seeing maybe in the last week for the SD Bullion demand?
As far as retail demand, there's not really that much of a story there right now. What has the potential to be a black swan is a story we've been covering publicly on Silver Doctors for about a month. We've been aware of it for probably about 4 months now, and that's Elemental Capital, or Elemental Refining, which is, for those who aren't aware, one of the top two gold and silver refiners in the country, who allegedly imported billions upon billions of dollars worth of illegally mined gold from Peru and then smuggling it through Bolivia. And when the Department of Justice came out and actually charged their individuals about a month ago, we started officially covering it. And we've warned readers and listeners for several weeks about the possible ramifications and fallout from it, and we've been beginning to start to see the effects of that. Last Friday, Ohio Precious Metals, their what used to be called OPM, their massive mint and refinery in Jackson, Ohio, was shut down as Scotiabank has recalled all of Elemental's loans, and basically their bank shut down the facility and recalled all of the metal. And we can post a copy of the letter in the show's write-up, but Elemental sent out a notice to customers yesterday on Thursday, April 6th, basically defaulting on all of the gold and silver that they owe their customers, essentially telling them that they're not going to see any payment for months to a year. I can read a paragraph here. A series of recent events, including reduced business volumes and negative publicity associated with the South American operations of 3 former employees of affiliate NTR Metals Miami, have required Elemental Refining to discontinue its high-grade metals refining business. Notwithstanding these negative developments, we are confident we will be able to pay everyone in full over the next 6 months. We are in the process of leveraging available assets, excluding the refinery premises, and working diligently with our primary metals bank to arrive at a payment structure that accomplishes this goal. We expect the first payments to begin very shortly. The above actions, together with your cooperation, will allow us to achieve this outcome in the shortest amount of time. Unfortunately, we're not able to accommodate customer requests for access to the refinery facility at this point. Some customers have inquired about when title to metal is deemed to have vested with refining. So they're saying here that their customers are talking about when the title is changed from the customer's name to Elemental's name when they're shipping scrap metal or scrap coins in for refining. And they continue, it is our understanding that this occurs upon delivery to the refinery, resulting in a first lien to our metals bank. See Ohio Revised Code 130242. So put that into layman's term, they're saying that once your metal arrived, the first lien goes to Scotiabank. Our banker gets the first grab at it. So sorry, guys. Sorry, coin shops. Sorry, anybody who's sent metal. Scotiabank now has your gold. So, I mean, that's going to have a pretty big effect upon the gold and silver market here in the U.S. Subsequent to that, the U.S. Mint has revoked the licensing of Elemental and What that refers to is the 400-ounce bars that the U.S. Mint would purchase to then melt down into coins for gold eagles and gold buffaloes. The U.S. Mint doesn't just buy random coins or blanks off of the market to strike into coins. They purchase their own 400-ounce bars and then melt them into, and then they contract with the mint to melt them and mint them and strike the coins and so forth. But so what that means is that number one, the U.S. Mint has been using that elemental gold that's allegedly illegally mined. But number two, it sets up a potential shortage situation in the U.S. markets, as you have one of the top two refiners no longer producing output anymore. I mean, thankfully for investors, this comes during a time when the market's a bit slow. I can't imagine what would have happened if this would have gone down 18 months ago during the either second or third quarter of 2015. Even last year, this time the market was tight. So if it had to happen as far as a shortage in the market, this is the best time for something like this of a black swan to happen. But still, it remains to be seen. I mean, the gold and silver are a very small industry, and there's really only two major refiners in the U.S., and this was one of them. So it remains to be seen the continued fallout and implications on multiple fronts. I mean, so now you're going to have capital issues via counterparty risk. So counterparties who Elemental owed either capital or inventory to that are now out that product or capital. And again, as that legal notice from Elemental Refining's president stated, that's all being grabbed by their bank, Scotiabank. And then you also have, on the other side, you have the potential implications of a supply shortage, as one of the top two refiners and then wholesalers in the U.S. is basically gone to zero refining production as their main facilities have been shut down. So it'll be interesting to see how this continues to play out across the industry. And I mean, again, Elemental owns Provident Metals as well on the retail side. So, I mean, there's a lot remains to be seen in how it all plays out for Elemental.
It'll definitely be an interesting story to keep our eyes on. So I know you wrote a piece last week, I believe, about how there's a lot of fake silver coming out of China, and especially like numismatic and rare coins. So like fake Morgan silver dollars, and also there were like Standing Liberty coins that were coming out, fake silver coins like that. And there were a couple others as well. And you also wrote in this article a little bit about how people can make sure that their silver is real. What are some things that SD Bullion does, and what are some things that purchasers of gold and silver can do to make sure their metal is authentic?
Sure. I mean, the main thing that any of the top 5 or 10 bullion dealers in the U.S. do is they buy directly from the source. So when SD Bullion's placing an order for 10,000 or 25,000 Silver Eagles, they're coming straight from one of the U.S. Mint's authorized purchasers. They're delivering a pallet or multiple pallets of Silver Eagles that are basically on a Brinks truck straight from the mint. They're still strapped. The coins have never been touched. They're brand new coins. So, I mean, number one is inventory sourcing. Where is the company that you're buying inventory from? Are they buying from people just coming in off the street? Are they buying from Craigslist? Are they buying from online auction sites like eBay, which has had a huge issue with counterfeits from mainly Chinese sellers? But again, they're now circulating the market. So that's one of the easiest things, is sourcing material and knowing where the coins that you're buying came from. Now another thing, so I mean, that's the easiest thing for SD Bullion, is buying straight from the mint. Now, any coins that we buy back from a customer, There's several different scanning devices and things we use to verify the authenticity. Every single coin or bar we buy back from a customer is tested and scanned to ensure its authenticity and purity. And we've actually began carrying and selling for customers one of the devices that we actually do use to test coins, and that's the Sigma Metalytics Precious Metals Verifier, because it really is really simple and straightforward and quick to use for the end user to test the purity of gold and silver coins. So that certainly helps as well. But I mean, really just common sense, knowing your product, knowing the coins, knowing what to look for goes a long way as well for the average gold and silver investor.
All right. Well, John, thank you so much for coming on the show today. Are there any last thoughts you'd like to add before we leave you?
That'll be interesting to see here. Just the whole geopolitical situation over the weekend. Hopefully Putin and everyone in Moscow will have a little bit cooler heads and won't escalate this conflict here. Hopefully it was just the one warehouse and this won't be continued or escalated, but I mean it's crazy that it's been 4 to 5 months now that anytime you turn on the TV in any channel, I mean it seems like even the Cartoon Network, everybody's bashing Trump. And yet today here, Trump launches 60 Tomahawk cruise missiles at